It is another week here at Steelers Talk, which means it's another weekly live mailbag right here on the channel. So today I'm going to be answering your questions on the black and gold. Can't wait to see what you guys got for me this week. But before we get into this week's questions, if you're watching this and it's not Wednesday, that means that you missed the Steelers Talk live show this week. We have them every single Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you guys have your opportunity to get your voice on the show. We like to give you guys an interactive Steelers community where you can talk with your fellow Yinzers, you can get your voice on the show, you can have your opinions heard, and you guys give us so much support here at Steelers Talk that we want to give you guys something back here. So make sure you click that subscribe button today and then join us every single Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you can get your question on the show for everybody to see. All right, so now I'll pause and open it up for questions. First one from Steelers Dad here, Gold Club member, says, if a quote-unquote elite quarterback is still available at pick 20, would you go for one? I don't think so. I mean, unless it's Caleb Williams, and that's just not happening, or if it's like Jaden Daniels, which is not happening, I just don't see any reason for the Steelers to do this. You already have your true veteran option, right, at Russell Wilson, who's 35 years old, still playing. I thought he played a pretty decent season last year with the Denver Broncos. And then you got the young, kind of quote-unquote up-and-coming guy in Justin Fields, the guy that is massively talented. And if Russ doesn't work out, you have a young gun in there that you can put in there. Maybe he earns himself a franchise quarterback designation for the future, right? So you've got the older veteran, and you've got the younger, kind of higher upside guy. So I don't really see any reason to take a quarterback in round one, especially when you need a center. You need an offensive tackle. You need another corner. So you have things that you absolutely need to address at this point in the offseason, and taking a quarterback when you already have a pretty darn stacked quarterback room just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me personally. Then we got one from Yawning Kenshin, I hope I'm saying that right, and says, do you think Brenden Aiyuk would join the Steelers? He does not have a choice in the matter. If he's traded here, he is a Pittsburgh Steeler. Now, I do think that he'd be happy to come play for Mike Tomlin because he might be his long-lost dad, all right? Because have you ever seen a picture of these two side by side? They look exactly alike, all right? So I do think, it's a winning ball club, a veteran quarterback that throws a great deep ball in Russell Wilson. I don't think Brenden Aiyuk would have any issue whatsoever being traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially if GM Omar Khan has a brand new contract waiting for him when he arrives, all right? So I think if Brenden Aiyuk is traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's going to be happy. He's going to get a new contract. It's all going to be good. The only question is the price that the Steelers is willing to pay for him match up with what the 49ers want in trade compensation? Then we got a $10 super chat here from Soapy Nugget. What's up, Soapy? Says, I know the Deontay trade already happened, but what if the trade we made was Deontay for Darius Slayton and a draft pick? The Giants need a wide receiver too, and Slayton is a wide receiver too. I mean, exactly. So it's like, why would they need to get another wide receiver too? I mean, unless you're saying Deontay Johnson would be their legit number one wide receiver, which I don't really think that that's the case. They're in position to take a really awesome wide receiver prospect in the draft this year. They could get one even in the second round if they wanted to, because it's such a good wide receiver class. So they've got a lot of options at the position. So I really don't think the Giants would have been particularly too keen on this trade idea, Soapy. Then we got one from F Left. Says, if the Patriots cut Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm guessing, do you think the Steelers could bring him back? Certainly. It's a possibility. He's a great run blocker. That's one of the things that Juju does really well, is he really prides himself on, I know that people get like the TikTok kind of thing, and he's kind of a soy boy or whatever because of that, but the dude blocks, all right? He's super physical at the block point, and I do think that he fits what Mike Tomlin likes in his slot wide receiver, which is why they drafted him all those years back, right? And that's why he was featured so heavily in this offense for the years that he was here. Now, he's definitely fallen off a little bit. I do think he'd have to come on a very team-friendly deal, but absolutely, I think they could bring back Juju if he is released. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you bring back Juju Smith-Schuster on a team-friendly deal this offseason if he's released by the Patriots? Type yes or type no for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Got a $2 super chat here from Austin Kuffner. Says, how do you feel about Brenden Rice and Luke McCaffrey? So Luke McCaffrey is a physical freak. I don't know what the exact relative athletic score is for him, but I think it was like close to a 9.99 if I'm not mistaken. Like he was just flying. And, the short shuttle stuff was awesome. Luke McCaffrey, I'm not sure if he's going to be Christian or anything close to what Christian has done in the league, but he's an athletic jitterbug type, probably going to be a day 3 wide receiver. And then Brenden Rice, bigger wide receiver, maybe not the best route runner in the world, but he's very, very secure hands, good red zone threat. So he's somebody that I connect to a team like the Washington Commanders, for example, that doesn't have a lot of size in their wide receiver room. They need kind of more of like a bigger wide receiver threat. So Brenden Rice is somebody that I like as like a late round 3, 4th round type wide receiver in this very, very good wide receiver class. But I don't really see him becoming like a star like obviously his dad, Jerry Rice, was, who's arguably the GOAT when it comes to the wide receivers in the history of this league. Now, before we get to the rest of this week's questions, I want to talk about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And I want to give a big shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's Steelers Talk video. And they've got specials for new and returning users alike for the Final Four when you head on over to prizepicks.com/CLNS or download the Prize Picks app today. Football season may be over, but the action on the hardwood is just heating up, and whether it's the Final Four or the fight for NBA playoff seeding, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of the year, every single day. Get in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. March Madness has now reached its peak with the Final Four just on the horizon here this weekend, and you can pick more or less right now to make some money on the biggest stage of college hoops. Prize Picks is simple. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get started now if you haven't already at prizepicks.com/CLNS and get a first-time deposit match of $100 today when you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS or download the Prize Picks app today. You can pick more or you can pick less. It's that easy with our friends at Prize Picks. Then we got a $2 super chat here from my friend Kyle King, the King. And he says, who and what in a trade with Texans for a wide receiver? So John Metchie is somebody that could be a possibility. Obviously, he's been put down the totem pole here. He's been seen as more of like a true route runner type. Now he's like 5'10", and he's a little bit lighter. So I don't think Arthur Smith would really see John Metchie as like a true fit. So I'm not sure if there's anybody on the Texans that the Steelers would be interested in, particularly when it comes to the wide receiver position. Then we got one from Jed Burrows here. And he says, what's your realistic trade up in the draft? I'm figuring we trade up to 35 for our second next year and a third and fourth this year. So he's talking about trading up in the second round to potentially take maybe, I don't know, an offensive tackle that's still there or a cornerback that's still there. Honestly, with the way the things currently are set up, Jed, I don't think that they'd be trading up. All right, and the reason why I say that is because you've got multiple needs. You have to get a wide receiver. You have to get a center. You have to get an offensive tackle. All right, and you have to get a corner. So that's 4 picks right there. The Steelers currently have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds, which is about where you can expect to get first-year starters. All right, so if you have 4 needs that you have to address, well, it doesn't make sense to me to trade some of those picks away to move up into the second round, right? I just don't see that as a possibility. Now, if they fill those needs, like if they can get somebody at offensive tackle, if they can get another corner, whatever the case may be, whatever, sure, maybe that we can talk about trading up higher in the second round. But until they do that, I'm not sure if that's a possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I would say trading down in round 1 might be the more likely possibility. Then we got one from Thomas Brady here. He says, if you had to choose between bringing back Patrick Peterson or Cam Sutton, who would you bring back? I'd bring back Patrick Peterson because I just don't know like what the hell is going on with Cam Sutton right now. I don't know what the whole legal proceeding is going to look like, all these different things. And Patrick Peterson at this point in the offseason, I think would be extremely inexpensive. He's a great leader in the locker room. He has a lot of experience to pass down to all the young players in the secondary room here. And he's somebody that I think as a backup safety option, rotational safety option, can definitely get the job done. So I think Patrick Peterson is probably the better fit here personally, especially with all the legal issues that Cam Sutton is currently under. Now, bring one back for me down there in the comments section. Would you bring back Cam Sutton, Patrick Peterson, or neither? Type CS for Sutton, PP for Patrick Peterson, or N for neither. $2 super chat here from Christian. It says round 1 tackle, round 2 center, round 3 wide receiver and cornerback, round 4 strong safety, round 5 defensive tackle, round 6 linebacker, and round 7 right end. I mean, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that it kind of depends on how the board falls, but if you're just going by positions and you don't really know what players are going to fall where, I think that'd be perfectly fine for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into this season for sure. I'd have to know what players are there before I completely sign off on it. But yes, I agree with the tackle in round 1. I agree with center in round 2. You got to take care of those 2 needs probably right away. You can get a wide receiver and a corner in round 3 with those 2 picks there. So I 100% agree with that order right there from Christian. Then we got one from DJ KJ. He says, is it possible we draft Mims in the first round and Cedric Van Pran in the second round? Exceptionally possible. Very, very possible. Because Amarius Mims is a guy that I think the Steelers are really honing in on. They met with him at the Combine. They went to his pro day, and they have their very own pro day set up for him in Pittsburgh. All right, so they obviously have a high level of interest in Amarius Mims. And if he's sitting there at 20, and with all the good tackle prospects in this year's draft, Talisi Fuaga, Joe Alt, Alou Fashanu, Troy Fotano, all these guys, I think that there's a really good chance Mims is sitting there at number 20, and that's who's going to be the pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then in round 2, if you haven't addressed center, I think you have to go center in round 2. And whether that's Zach Frazier or Cedric Van Pran, I don't know. But I do think one of those guys will probably end up being the option. Then we got one from Ethan here. He says, do you think the plan is to play Donte Jackson at outside corner or to move him into the slot? So, Ethan, I think that this could be either because Mike Tomlin does have a history of moving players away from positions that they normally play. Donte Jackson has pretty much only played on the outside in his career. However, he does have a skill set that can absolutely work in the slot. He's kind of shorter. He's got great short area quicks, obviously great long speed. He's a physical player, so I think he could certainly fit into that blitzing slot cornerback role that we saw Arthur Maulet and Mike Hilton kind of play in this defense for so many years. So I would like to see what Donte Jackson could do in the slot. And then if you get like a good outside corner in the draft, like a Kyrie Jackson or something like that out of Oregon, or maybe you still sign Stephon Gilmore in free agency, yeah, why not? Try him out in the slot. I think he'd be damn good in there, but you never know what they're thinking in the building. So where do you want to play Donte Jackson? If you were Mike Tomlin and you had a choice, would you play him on the outside, kind of a shorter outside cornerback presence, or would you get somebody, or would you put him in the slot? Type O if you'd keep him on the outside where he's played his entire career, or type S if you want to convert him into a nickel cornerback. That'll be it for this week's mailbag. Thank you to everybody that submitted questions. Again, if you want to get your question on next week's Steelers Talk mailbag, make sure you click that subscribe button and join us every single Wednesday for the Steelers Talk live show starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope to see you there.